Thank you for joining me for this special edition of the Intelligence Briefing for November 29th, 2021. This is going to be kind of a special edition because we have some breaking news here, or I guess it's breaking news because the event in question, or the event being reported here, actually happened about 8 years ago. But we have an interview and a testimony from a pastor staff member that used to work with James Merritt, who has some things to share about him, recently revealed on the Christian Commute podcast. And so we have some video to play for you from that. This accompanies an article that is now up at protestia.com. That article entitled "Former Staff Member Accuses James Merritt of Assault and Battery and Telling Racist Jokes." So you'll find this at protestia.com, outlining some of the details. And then this video will be embedded in that post as well. And we're going to play some of the clips. Now, this is an interview with a gentleman named Scott Morgan, who used to be on staff at Crosspointe Church and is describing some things about James Merritt. We're going to let you hear some of those things for yourself. Before we get to that video, I want to start with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Do you know what the gospel is? The gospel is the good news that although we were all born into sin, destined for a eternity apart from God, in eternal torment in hell itself, we were all destined for that because of our sin and things that we've done in our nature. God made a way for us to be reconciled to Him, that through the work and person of Jesus Christ, God the Father sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to be born of a virgin, live a perfect life, and die a death on the cross in our place, paying the price for our sin to the Father and reconciling us, those of us who believe in Jesus Christ, to God the Father. Jesus died on that cross, was buried, and raised the third day by the power of the Holy Spirit, now sits at the right hand of the Father, and that salvation is available as a free gift to all who would believe in Jesus Christ and trust Him for their salvation. If you have questions about that, please reach out to us, or if you would like us to pray for you, please reach out on any of the social media channels or Facebook or any of the other places that you find Protestia people. While I'm at it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell so you see when these videos will pop up. That always helps us get this news out even easier. Now on to the issue here. Now, James Merritt was recently taken to task, I suppose, on social media for endorsing the mediocre at best, and I would argue false preaching of his son Jonathan Merritt, who also happens to be an open homosexual. Jonathan Merritt skated for a long time under the banner of same-sex attraction Christianity, where he claimed that he was a homosexual, that he was naturally attracted to men. It was something he couldn't help, but that he was remaining celibate because that's what the Bible teaches. And of course, like many who claim that initially, he's just come out and admitted that he's a full-blown homosexual instead, even as he is apparently pastoring a church in New York, which is a horrible thing. But to make matters worse, we have James Merritt, I guess maybe he's still the current chair of the SBC Resolutions Committee. I don't know when that flips over, but he certainly was the chair of that committee during the annual meeting back in June, when he so famously rebuked a lot of us at the SBC annual meeting for our concern about critical race theory, stating something along the lines of, if there are people in here that if they were as much concerned about the gospel as they are about critical race theory, we would have won the world to Christ by now. Yeah, that's what he said from the floor of the convention, and now he has been endorsing and recommending his openly homosexual son's preaching, even as not only is that a bad endorsement, but the preaching itself was not good either. We're not going to get into that, but we're going to get into some new things now that we have learned about James Merritt. This from an interview on the Christian Commute Podcast with Seth Dunn. Seth is interviewing a friend of his, Scott Morgan, who is a former pastor minister at Crosspointe Church under the leadership of James Merritt, and has some things to say about James Merritt. We're going to jump into this video now. I have to warn you, some of this, the video kind of at the end here sort of freezes up. But when I load the next video, it'll kind of get back into it. The audio will continue, though.
You just have to, when you look at how this man has no business going around leading men's conferences. He got into that for a while. He was being brought into a lot of churches leading men's conferences.
He's leading men's conferences while he's employing his homosexual son as a minister. Oh, gosh,
yes. He would be doing men's conferences. His kids are,
That's a whole other men's conferences is a whole revenue thing in the church.
Sure it is.
Not just his.
Sure
Johnny has his.
Of course, he's talking about James Merritt here, just in case that's not clear.
Sure it is.
There's a lot of money in that.
There is.
I think that you've told me about the men's conference culture at Woodstock. We're not going to go into that.
No,
but let's go in, because we got two things I want to talk about to finish up. One is the Rastus joke, and Danny, that's coming. We're going to put the cherry on top, if you will.
On James and Danny on that one.
But let's go to what happened when you confronted James Merritt in his office.
Okay, when I confronted James Merritt.
And real quick, they make mention of the quote-unquote Rastus joke. Now, Rastus is a character or a caricature or a name used in, let's say, racist materials, racist, plays and flyers and writings and things like that to characterize the, and I quote, the happy Negro. That's who Rastus is. And so Scott Morgan goes into later the details of a joke that apparently James Merritt loved to tell all the time about Rastus and the two other black men walking around with him. And apparently he thought it was very funny. I'm not going to get into that on this one. We're gonna stick with the assault and battery. But you can go over to the Christian Commute Podcast, or you can head over to this video on YouTube, which I will link in the description here, so you can get to the full interview. Now we'll get back into the clip that I want to play here.
He was upset that he knew that I had been talking to some people about his son, but I had people coming to me.
So you went to him and said, James,
yes,
people are coming to me about John.
Yes. And then he and I, it got pretty heated. Let me rephrase that. It was really heated. He was behind his desk, and he just got up from behind his desk, and he came over to me, and I'm a much larger guy than James. And
you sitting down or standing up?
I think I was standing up now at the time. Yeah, I was standing up at the time. And he comes over to me, and James put his forehead on my forehead, leaned his forehead into my forehead, took his finger, and started pounding into my chest, not with a fist. I want to be honest, not with a fist, but pounding into my chest about his son, about like how dare I talk about his son, and blah 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 this, and he was pounding. And so finally, I don't know if he remembers in the heat of it, I said, "You need to take your finger off my chest." Now my flesh wanted to clock him, because you don't do that to a man.
You have to know,
but I didn't.
I mean, he's intimidating you as the boss, right?
Well, he's not much of it. He's not a very intimidating man.
Do you think you could beat him up if y'all went after it?
Listen,
he's not.
I don't want to.
I'm just saying, he's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Mike Tyson back there. Like,
no.
You better stop messing with me. Yes, sir, Mike Tyson. Please don't.
Yes.
So he's in his position of power at his church that he founded, and he goes to this staff person.
He's pounding his finger on my
This is not just any random staff person. Some guy who used to babysit his kids and worked for him for years.
Yes.
And let me tell you what would happen like that in my office.
Yes.
That guy, if the president of the company, that guy would end up...
Kept going back.
If that happened, and I think in any secular workplace, that guy would get fired, and the company lawyers would be saying, please sign a settlement.
Oh, that's coming.
Please sign a settlement so you don't sue the company for millions of dollars.
Yes.
So this is this pastor, quote-unquote pastor's edge Fortune High Tech.
Oh, and now he's hired to teach Christian leadership at Southeastern Baptist.
Who's been hired to teach Christian leadership at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary by his friend Danny Aiken. Goes to his staff person, a man who's known for years, leans his forehead in him and starts poking at him aggressively. Hard. That's a tort. It's battery.
I had to move his hand.
It's also a tort called assault because this is my legal opinion.
Yeah.
Assault as a civil tort is violence or threatened violence.
Yeah.
Battery is touching. Assault is violence or threatened violence. So in a civil way, this is assault and battery. That's what the world says.
Yeah, it got so loud that his secretary, he had another meeting with a couple. There was a couple outside of his door coming in for something, and his secretary had to come in and say, "What is going on in here?" I mean, it was loud.
That's the character of James Merritt.
Yeah, that's when I looked at him and said, I'm done. We're done. So me and another minister left that day on staff. We left. I went straight to my office to start literally boxing it up and cleaning my office out. He eventually comes down to my office. I'm doing that, going, let's calm down. Let's calm down. I said, no, we're done. I'm going to go to a doctor. And because, listen, no, he did not throw what you and I as men know as a fisted punch. So let me be honest on that. But you do not poke another man's chest over and over and over. I mean, I literally almost wanted to. In my mind, I wanted to pick him up and just body slam him.
Who has the ability to hire and fire you there?
Oh, James does.
It's not the church.
Oh, no.
Some people think it's a Baptist church, so the church has to vote on it. That's not how it goes. He decides. So the man who holds the power over your livelihood.
And there are people that would have backed James up no matter how much I had. Listen, that's why they surround themselves, a lot of these guys, with certain type of men that if they just say it, that they're going to believe them. It's sick. It's sick. So so this other minister tells me, he said, you need to go to the doctor right now. I mean, I'm going to be straight with you. I'm not lying to you here. My chest was hurting. I mean, I had to literally move his hand from finger from my chest. I went over into Hamilton Mill area, over in the Buford area. I went to an urgent care doctor. No, I went to a regular doctor, and when they asked me to take my shirt off, I had marks. And that other minister was with me, by the way. He was actually with me. And the doctor said, I can write up a thing here. You have marks on you. And the doctor...
I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to pause right here because a lot of people are going to turn it off right now and say, well, you got to have 2 or 3 witnesses to criticize an elder. All right?
Yep.
Granted, this is the wild, wild west America because James Merritt founds his own church. He's all of a sudden an elder. So that's one thing. But number 2, 1 witness, the other minister there is 2.
He was with me. He was with me.
This can all be verified.
Yes, he knows it, and he was with me. And then,
Now, I'm going to pause it for just a second. I'd be curious to know at some point, and I think we may find out at some point who this other minister is if they're willing to come forward and substantiate this. We can bet that there'll be denials from James Merritt and his camp now that this is out in the open. They'll probably address it or release some sort of a statement about what's true or not true about this and this and that. So I'd be very curious to know who this other person is that was with Scott here during this encounter or after this encounter or at the doctor or something like that.
The associate pastor at Crosspointe didn't know about it at the moment, and then all of a sudden my phone starts ringing. He goes, what in the world happened between you and James? He's freaking out. And he's like, Scott, please think clearly. Please think clearly. And so I'm at the doctor, and then my phone starts ringing about an hour and a half later, and I would never answer it. James kept calling my house, telling me to call him. I think he was nervous.
He knows he's in trouble.
Yeah, and I could have, I could have called the police. I could have called the police, and I had people tell me that I should have done that, but I didn't do it. And so he would not let me and this other minister who left. They would not allow us to come back to our offices on the property and box up our own books, stuff. They made secretary. We were told, the administrator of the church met with us and said we had to meet him in a certain back parking lot of the church parking lot. We were not allowed. He goes, and then to show you how, James said he was so sorry about what happened. But then the administrator was given, you could tell he was embarrassed, didn't want to do it. He was given a message to give to me and the other person that he never wants to have anything ever to do with us ever again. And so here's the man that supposedly, but he was supposedly so sorry about what he did. But then he gives, you got to know this guy. Listen, did you know if you go to people, I can give you names right now of guys that went to Snellville that didn't go with him to Crosspointe. I know one guy right now that will tell you there's a joke about James, and it's true. You'll never get James to apologize for nothing hardly. The man will not. I'm just telling you right now. I had it lined up where I remember one time with James to go meet with this guy that didn't go to Crosspointe. This guy who'd left the church at Snellville because he was upset with some things, and James.
We're going to fast forward here a little bit. I actually do have a little bit more time left in this video, so we're going to get into Scott's account of James Merritt's racist Rastus joke.
Hurt over the years how he treated people. But where I'm just finally had enough with him is when hearing him lecture the SBC about the whole thing of racism. But here is the man that would laugh and enjoy calling up his fellow minister friends. I remember the days back at Snellville when we would be going out, Seth, on Tuesday night visitation. And James would be in his church car given to him. And he would call some of his minister friends over the country as we're going to share Christ with people, to share the gospel visitors. And he would go, hey, let me tell you about this joke about Rastus. And he'd get on the phone, and of course, James I have to give James credit. Nobody could tell it like James. I mean, James had a voice of all voices, and he would say, he'd start off talking about how these 3 black boys, it was an anti-black joke. It was highlighting, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. It was trying to come across that blacks are just stupid.
Like a pickaninny culture.
Yes, that's what he was trying to do. And so the joke would be something like, and again, if James was here, we'd just say, James, tell it. I mean, nobody can tell it like you. He would start off like, these 3 black boys were walking down like this country road, and one of
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah, that would be perfect, Seth. Yeah, and one of them would be going like, Rastus, did you poot in your britches, Rastus? And he'd use that voice. He would tell that
like talking
voice.
like a black guy.
Yes.
Talking like Bagger Vance.
Yeah. He would try to
mister, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And he'd go, Rastus, did you poot in your britches? And James would be laughing. Like, he'd look over at me in the car while he was telling this joke to he would call his different pastor friends.
He just called it back.
Yeah, he would. And then these guys would listen to it, and he would go, and he'd start, laughing, laughing, and he'd go, Rastus, did you poot in your britches, Rastus? And Rastus would go, no, I didn't poot in my britches. Then they'd go down the road farther, and then one of the other black guys would go, Rastus, are you sure you didn't poot in your britches? And Rastus said, no, sir, I didn't poot in my britches. And then finally, they'd ask him the 3rd time, Rastus, did you poot in your britches? And Rastus all of a sudden stopped and looked down and goes, I thought you meant today. And so, I mean, that's this man. That's who he is.
He's calling up the leadership of the Southern Baptist, various mega friends.
You, me. Yes, Conservative Baptist Network, like we're some racist. And here's this man that's gone around for years telling this joke. I mean, listen, this wasn't like a joke one time. I was with him several times. Several could mean at least 10 times where he used this joke. Matter of fact, it got so sad that I knew of another pastor on our staff at Snellville that started telling the same joke, but he got it from James. This is this man. This is who he is. And he's going to lecture to the Southern Baptist Convention. I want his son to talk about that among his...
Did he make it clear it was like black guys and not just any old...
Oh my gosh.
It's black guys.
like Seth and
Walter Strickland, are you listening?
Yes.
Tell us who Walter Strickland is.
Walter Strickland is a conservative black man The
scare quote conservative.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Walter Strickland, the vice president of Kingdom Diversity.
Oh, you mean that Walter Strickland?
No.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
No,
I thought. Oh no, you know what I was getting you mixed up. Getting it mixed up with somebody else. I'm sorry. No. The Walter Strickland. Oh yes.
Walter Strickland, vice president of Kingdom Diversity at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary.
Yes.
Works for Danny Akin. Reads James Cone. Hey, Danny Akin.
Yes.
This is
we're going to pause it here, but you can see the rest of this by clicking the link in the description here to get to the YouTube video, or you can listen to this podcast version at the Christian Commute Bible Thumping Wingnut Podcast Network. You'll find it there. Safe to say this is pretty compelling stuff that we're revealing here about James Merritt from this interview. As far as I know, this story has been, or this knowledge has been available for a while. I'm not sure if Scott was holding back for some reason or what the deal is. We'll keep investigating, but safe to say he's comfortable now going on the record with all of this, and we'll likely talk about it again on future videos, either on the intelligence briefing here or on potentially polemics reports. Thank you for tuning in to this. That video's still going. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the intelligence briefing. We will catch you guys next time. Thanks. Bye.